Hi, folks. I'm Herb Stevenson.
I'm Sahadeo Ramharak.
Welcome to Natural Passages, Revealing the Unmarked Doors of Life. Thank you for joining us.
We're excited to have you today. We have a very interesting topic. Do you want to tell them what it is?
You can read it right there.
All right. We are going to chat today about internal versus external authority. And I think this is like one of my favorite topics. And this is where the struggle to individuate requires revealing the many falsities that prevent people from becoming more fully who they are. What does that mean, Herb?
So that was for the person who, by the end, I hope that they understand what it means. Most of us are, this was one of those things as over the years that I began to examine about myself, but also other people, is what authority are you listening to when you decide how you're going to behave in the world or how you're going to respond to it? And I suddenly realized that, we're taught all of these rules about how we're supposed to behave, which is external authority,
Okay.
versus when we're going to individuate or become more fully who we are, we start establishing internal authority. The earliest applications of that is when kids hit teenagers and they become rebellious and they're trying to exert internal authority. And if you grew up in the era that I did, then you get squashed real quick. Not so much now because the younger kids really have built a sense of their right and their ability to speak who they are. But it's interesting for me when we talk about authority is which authority are you going to listen to? Are you going to listen to yourself? And I'll give you an example. Everybody has an internal voice, a little voice in there that really wants to speak, but doesn't. It wants to step into situations they know are wrong, but they don't. Okay? And so what's happened is external authority, which means, well, if I do this, I take the risk I'm going to be beat down or embarrassed. So all of these external rules basically prevent us from moving into a full self-determining process.
Okay.
So we become an other-determined process or person. So, for example, if I come from a very strong, rigid upbringing, could be religious, could be family, could be a variety of things, my sense of self will be weaker and I'll be afraid of external authority. So I don't want to violate God, or I don't want to upset my parents, or I don't want to do all these things. So anything to be preventive is how I'll function in my world. And so in doing that, then my external definition means I will be fully compliant with external rules and pressures to conform. If you remember the Stepford Wives, I'll be a Stepford person. I comply to whatever the rules are.
So is that like people pleasing?
All of those things.
Okay.
So what ends up happening is I become confluent and afraid of literally expressing my true self. Now, we've all seen movies or various other situations where somebody who has been subordinated their whole life one day blows up. Well, all of that internal pressure of knowing that what was happening is wrong in terms of themselves explodes. So the same thing happens is we become more present and more consciously and self-aware, we begin to realize, what are all the rules I've been living by?
Yeah.
And we have all sorts of them. We're coming from a rural area. You're not supposed to be beyond your raisings.
Okay.
So everybody knows you're too big for your britches.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Get in line of how we are, how we behave. It's a cultural, self-sealed system. That happens many reasons, because in earlier days that was survival. if you live within a certain rules and boundaries, and we can all, we'll be safe. But the problem with that is then it denies you. So you end up subordinating yourself to cultural, parental, organizational norms. You have weak ability to self-reflect. You just comply. You measures yourself in terms of external forms of approval, such as assets, bank accounts, promotions, the need for approval to feel safe. But if I'm I have a clear sense of internal approval, I have an internal definition of myself. I literally become self-determining. It means I have a clear relationship with external authority. That's the issue that most people don't understand is, I'm not saying is throw the baby out the bathwater with all the rules, because I would rather you look both ways before you cross the street. Okay? So there are really
Some rules
valid safety rules, but to be only compliant. I was working with a client today, a CEO, and his entire approach of how to engage comes from a self-determination, which is he doesn't give more power to external authority, which is all his superiors that he responds to, because he's part of a subsidiary. Okay. So he has higher-ups all around, but he has engagements with them as if he's a peer. In other words, he has the right to express things, but he doesn't do it out of defensiveness or right and wrongness. He's saying is, you're suggesting we do all these things, but you're failing to understand if I do that in this situation, my costs increase and you don't get any benefit more than what we're already doing. And when he revealed that, they agreed. But a person with an external authority ruling would just have complied. Does that make sense? So internal authority says I have the right to fully resource myself, trust myself. I have a higher self-esteem, possibility thinking, strong sense of it's okay just to be who I am. Uses external authority to understand the pressures to conform without losing one's sense of self-understanding. And external influences and how to use them to support creating what is consistent with one's self. So I'll give you some examples of how external authority really affected me. If I followed everything that how I was raised, we wouldn't be doing a podcast.
Right. Yeah. Okay?
That's simple.
I can agree. Yeah.
That was not acceptable. That's dangerous. Why would you do that? You're going to embarrass us.
Yeah.
It's embarrass us.
Yeah.
Okay. The same thing with a whole lot of things. I would never have left the banking industry when I was still inside that industry to pursue what really interested me. Yeah. And build the consulting practice I have. Yeah. I would never have written books. Yeah. Because external authority of where I was raised is, who do you think you are to write a book? But see, all of those are to conform to everybody feels safe. But it also then, it prevents anybody from actually growing beyond their raisings.
Yeah. Doesn't allow for like an evolution.
Every cultural dynamic has this problem. So the famous movie Fiddler on the Roof was about this issue. Tradition says you're supposed to do all this, but the idea of the play is traditions have to adjust because life adjusts and changes. Yeah, so it's good to have certain traditions and things, but it should not dictate that it prevents a person from fully expressing who they are.
Absolutely.
So internal authority, when fully developed, oftentimes is viewed as rebellious, and it's really not. People who end up being Rolling Stones, if they had listened to everybody telling them to quit making this racket and noise, and who do they think they were to be out doing this, we wouldn't have never had the Rolling Stones or any of the other rock groups. We wouldn't have had certain people who, if you listen to their stories, will tell you all along the way there were people saying, no, 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 you can't do that. Go get a real job.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I was just rewatching the Apple movie about Steve Jobs. It's the same kind of message, right? He knew he had his own internal vision of what he thought the computer could do. And then you would see the board and you would see everyone else around him try to like shut that vision down. But he had that knowing. So was he grounded and certain and had developed a really good internal sense of self that allowed him to like continue to push forward with this?
Well, I'll give you a little broader opinion.
Yeah.
I'll own this as my opinion. His internal authority was so strong.
Yeah.
He lived outside the confines of external authority, such as shareholder interests and other things. And so he was, even though it led to a great success, he was not known as kind and gentle.
Right. Yeah.
He was often referred to as brutal. And so then the question comes down to is what's the right way? What I'm professing is a balanced approach. That's why it says is if I have clear internal authority, I know how to live within the confines of external authority. I don't have to become subordinate to it, but I do know I have to live within it to a certain degree. I have to live within the laws of the land. I have to just even basics, food, clothing, and shelter. There's things that you want to pay attention to.
Yeah.
So it's finding this balance, but it's really saying yes to who you are, listening to the inner voice about what you want to do. And I give you an example. I worked with an individual, and when we started self-defining, he got very clear. He was CEO of a family-owned business. He was the father's chosen one to run the business, and so it was very successful. And he realized he didn't want to do it. He didn't like it. He didn't enjoy it. He had a dream of something else. And I said, well, just curious, what is it? And it was to move to a foreign country and take his kids, and so that they experience cross-cultural dynamics.
Wow.
And
yeah.
Sounds real cool.
That's very different than running the family business.
Right. So over a period, he began to get clear about what his wants and dreams were and that it's acceptable. There was nothing wrong with it. And in doing that, he looked at all the various options. They tried bringing in a new CEO, which he supported. That wasn't working. So instead of that, what he decided to do is where the family was, and they were multi-generationally set up because they had set foundations and trusts and things up. He went and came back with a proposal to sell the business, the family business. There was no one else to run it. So they did. And then that became acceptance by the parents, realizing that, okay, that was your dream, but this is my dream. He went to a foreign country, and he ended up setting up a business. It's been highly successful, something he absolutely loves doing.
Oh, wow.
Every day is a joy to get up and do that work.
Yeah.
And the solvency of the family wealth was preserved.
Okay.
But he said yes to his internal authority. Now the pushback when some of these things happen is the pushback is that you're bad or wrong because you're not obedient. Which isn't true. I'm just not doing what you want me to do.
Right. Yeah.
And you need to look at what you want me to do. Is that a right thing? And for when I grew up, generationally, a lot of times that's how it is. It's passed down, and there's a pressure.
I can relate to that. I think, especially with different communities and strong cultural backgrounds, like you said, and expectations. And a lot of times things just get passed down and people don't know why.
Well, and the why is also, it's not only not knowing the why, but does the why apply anymore?
Right. Does the why fit now?
Because if I would stayed and not developed my own path, as I said, I wouldn't have done any of the things that I've done. I wouldn't have accomplished them.
Yeah.
wouldn't have had as much joy and fun as I have been able to have, because I said, who am I? And how do I be more fully who I am, and experiment and try things? And so doing a podcast was an experiment. It's like, well, let's get Saadeo and go see if we can embarrass ourselves.
Let's try this. Yeah.
And we both did.
Here we are.
and so, but there's no dead bodies, and police aren't looking for us yet. So all those stories of why you can't do something.
Right.
And we all do that. And there's a new song out. I can't remember who put it out, but it's a country western song, and it basically it's a very positive song, because it says if you have a chance, take it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And if you have a dream, chase it, because it won't chase you back.
Yeah.
That's where we get external authority. It says no, you can't. Internal authority says why not. And the only way to find out is go try it, and that makes it very, it makes life more enriching, because you're actually more congruent with who you are. So that's why the balance between the two, because it's very similar to what we talked about the last time, is the ping pong effect. If I'm playing ping pong with myself, I'm fighting all the rules of my upbringing, that's external authority, with all the wishes of my own self, my internal authority, and they constantly clash. And until we decide to accept, it's okay to self-determine yourself, it's okay to self-define within the reasons or reasonable aspect of the larger society. But that requires, again, witnessing yourself, being present to yourself, grounded into your body, and able to say yes to yourself.
Yeah, empower yourself to yourself. Yeah.
Right.
You have to be able to do that. And you don't even realize how far down you could bury yourself and that sense of like internal authority under the weight of all this other stuff.
Truly.
I think based on my own life and like experiences, I could see that I now know when I'm living from my internal authority place and when external authority has like taken over. And sometimes it's, I've swung back and forth, but now I know the quality of my life when I was living more on my internal authority, and when I shift off from it. So then I just try to focus on getting back to that place, because I see it as freedom.
What's freedom, and the interesting thing is you feel better inside yourself.
Absolutely, yeah.
You feel like you're being truthful to yourself.
Yeah.
So you're living the life you really want to live.
And it allows me to stay present with others in a whole different way when I'm grounded in that internal authority.
The biggest issue around this idea of internal authority is it's not a binary in the sense of I'm going to be self-determining and suddenly I'm going to throw the baby out with the bathwater with all the other stuff, because some people do that, midlife corrections, I call it.
Yeah.
And they go chase this dream. I'm okay with a massive shift in life, but the idea is okay, how does this fit in the overall scheme of who I am? And it might mean that for some people it means ending a relationship. It might mean a job change or something of that nature. I'm fine with that, but do it within the aspect of looking to the larger picture. How does that fit in? And how does it eventually create the life you really want? Because the problem with when we do a midlife crisis or correction, we go too quickly.
Okay.
We can go too quickly. I'm not saying everybody does, but the question is don't go chase this. What can I let go of this so I understand what I'm walking away from, instead of what I'm hiding and burying, which will probably still have an impact on you. So it's, how do I self-define and live within the rules of society? Okay?
Absolutely. It's a great balance.
Okay. Well, I think that's a big good place. So I'm Herb Stevenson. I thank you for listening or watching to us on our podcast.
Sahadeo Ramharak. Leave some comments. Let us know if you are following your own internal authority. What are you doing with it?
Do that, and we'd love if you'd subscribe, and as well as pass this on to other people. If you found this of value and interest, it's always helpful to spread the word so that we can have a more centered society. Thanks much.